Earth 16 Comics Wire on the Daily Planet. And here today we have an awesome special guest, man. We have Evan Filicara, the leader, the main man of the Spider Squad, or Spidey Squad. Did I say that correctly?
Almost Evan Flicara, but everyone also says that too. And funny story, by the way, you're not the first person to do that because in my graduation year of high school, when I went to Oceana High in Pacifica, California, my school guidance counselor was up on the stage podium announcing awards for like GPA and high honors and stuff. And I did this little small award for community service because that was actually a requirement to graduate. And it was for 305 hours of community service that I did working at as a zoo volunteer at the San Francisco Zoo. And he also said Evan Filicara on stage. I'm like, great. So happy I spent all that time to get my name pronounced wrong. No worries. But no, thank you so much, dude, for that amazing intro. And I'm just so happy that you guys invited me on here to discuss everything that we love about superheroes, Marvel, DC, anything within this amazing medium. And I just can't thank you guys enough. So I am honored to be here with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And as you constant listeners know, my name is Brian. I'm Brian from Earth 16, and my co-host is Brandon Rooney. We're both from the Daily Planet, here to bring you this awesome content.
Alrighty, guys, you want to just get into it? Hi, guys. Also,
Yes,
my name
sir.
is my name is Bren versus Reviews. You know me, I write all the time. I got my editorials. So, yeah, let's just get to it. Evan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, dude. I just finished doing a couple of research assignments for my online courses in school. I'm actually currently standing, shockingly enough, at a 4.0 GPA, which that's pretty shocking for me personally. That's a new record. And also just currently seeing the status of our boy Spidey in the gaming realm thriving like never before, which is insane to see both for our boy Peter and Miles for Spider-Man PS4 and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. The stats are skyrocketing, and sadly, in the also news of Marvel games, the Avengers title from Square Enix isn't really doing as well. It recently got put on PlayStation Now, which is good for a free title-ish if you have subscribed to that service, but it still has yet to turn a major profit to kind of get back the developer costs that were spent on making the game and marketing it to the general public. And I was thinking about doing a video about that recently, but instead I just did a live stream discussing it with my fellow Spidey Squad members and viewers. So that was fun. But other than that, just kind of waiting for more major games related news for superhero titles. Kind of still waiting, I would say, for Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad, since those got one of which got delayed, Gotham Knights to 2022, and Suicide Squad's
Oh,
a bit
man.
far out. So we're gonna have to wait more about that. Marvel games, in the recent news, nothing really going on for new titles except the possibility of a leaked Guardians of the Galaxy game. Maybe a Spider-Man 2 announcement by the end of 2021 at the earliest, maybe. We will see. If not, hopefully sooner, or maybe around E3 and a Sony State of Play, if we're lucky. But all good things come to those who wait, so hopefully we may get a insight soon for what Spidey is up to in the gaming sphere.
Sounds
Yeah,
good to me.
sounds really good to me. I mean, I'm kind of bummed that they decided to put the delay on Gotham Knights and the other games.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was really looking forward to those, and those were so heavily hyped, especially during like Comic Con last year. Just showing like all the you have a good storyline and all of that, and I think it's like post Arkham, is it, or kind of loosely a sequel to Arkham?
Right. So the weird thing, which I'm kind of like, I don't know if I agree with the decision that they went with this, because the trailer that we see for Gotham Knights has kind of the Bat family separated, and then they see the announcement like, oh, there was an explosion at Wayne Manor, and
Yeah.
something's wrong with Bruce Wayne. Oh, he's dead, and then like, oh, the
Hmm.
Gotham Knights have to come in to save the day, and that's exactly what happened at the end of Arkham Knight. But apparently, that game is not in the same universe as the Arkham franchise, and instead the Suicide Squad game, which is developed by Rocksteady, is in the Arkham universe, even though there wasn't really a whole lot of ties to the Suicide Squad previously. I mean, there were hints and teases, but not really a big emphasis on the group as much. So it's kind of odd with the route that DC is going with, but I do appreciate it for being new and different and innovative with those properties that we haven't really seen that much in the gaming realm.
So
So
go
it'll
ahead.
be interesting to see where that goes.
So in that case, wouldn't like the Suicide Squad be like a prequel or a sequel, perhaps, to the Batman Arkham series?
I think they did confirm it takes place after Arkham Knight. So it is a sequel to that game and a continuation of that universe instead of a before prequel type of setting. But it's cool to see that they're kind of expanding the lore
Yeah.
with the villains instead of the main heroes to kill the Justice League. I mean, the game is literally called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. So it's a very interesting premise, and how that will interpret into a game versus like the next movie with the Suicide Squad by James Gunn, which does look pretty fun, with Starro as the main villain, which is insane and
Oh
so
yeah, I
sick.
saw that.
I cannot
Yeah, it
wait for
does
that.
look
That's
good.
going to be amazing. I'm curious to see how that's going to go around with the whole Brainiac plot, because it looks like he's there controlling Superman, at least one of the Justice League members, and possibly other members of the team as the main antagonist, quote unquote, of that title. So we'll see how that turns out. I feel like we kind of saw that already in Injustice 2, kind of, but if they kind of do something new and interesting with it, then maybe it'll catch my attention. But for right now, I'm kind of hesitant on both that title and Gotham Knights. I just need to wait and see more about what we're dealing with here with these games. But it's cool that they're going in such a unique route with these characters.
Yeah,
Now, a good
go ahead. Sorry.
No, a good question. Sorry about that. No, a good question to ask would be, do you think Gotham Knights got delayed because they don't want to follow in like what happened to Avengers and like public reaction from that?
See,
It's
it's a really good question, and it's certainly a very interesting time we're living in right now, right? Where the superhero genre is expanding in so many different ways in so many different mediums, movies, TV shows. The comics are doing pretty good too. Animated movies are also doing really well, but the games, I think, is like the new frontier. Kind of what we talked about previously before we started, is that there were always these movie tie-in games about these titles that connected to like the films, because that was what was making the most money, and the games try to bank off that in a very profitable way. But now we see how much independence can be given to these developers with these characters and these titles and these properties to create experiences that can rival the movies, not just be as good or maybe like, a little bit lesser so than them, but like even surpass even some superhero films that we know of. Like, I personally love the Batman Arkham series a lot more than the majority of Batman's on-screen film live action adaptations. And I also love the animated series as well with Kevin Conroy. But for the games and Avengers specifically, I feel like Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics as well, the publisher and developer behind that project, didn't really understand what was so successful about the previous Marvel game, which was, of course, Spider-Man PS4. And instead, they created a property that the characters could try and make better, instead of just simply making a game that would do the characters justice. When you think of the Avengers, I don't really think of grinding for gear, looting for chests, emotes like Fortnite. Like, I don't know, but a co-op experience does sound engaging. A multiplayer online brawler type of experience does sound engaging, and that is what Gotham Knights is turning into. And they pretty much made clear, like, they kind of, funny enough, dissed it in some interviews, like, oh, it's not live service, so it's not like Avengers, but it does have kind of similar-ish elements where there is gear, there is co-op, there is kind of, tag team abilities with the characters. But the delay for that, when they say we're here to make the best experience possible through the delay, is yet to be determined whether exactly the reasoning was because of the backlash for Avengers. But I definitely think that some aspects of the game, compared to what it was planned to be releasing this year in 2021, will have heavily changed and shifted focus once we see the more polished product next year. And I also think Warner Brothers can't afford to release all three of their upcoming major properties in 2022. So right now, Gotham Knights was delayed from 2021 to 2022. Hogwarts Legacy was also delayed as well from 2021 to 2022, which I'm a big Harry Potter fan, so that'll be cool to play.
Gryffindor.
And yeah, bud. For some reason, I guess I got Hufflepuff in a quiz, so I'm rocking.
I'm a
Hufflepuff
Ravenclaw.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
That's right. Slytherin can go away, bro. I'm sorry. Malfoy is not my guy. we can ignore them for now. But yeah, with those properties, it's so cool to see. Even like a franchise, like Harry Potter. They got the of course, the Daniel Radcliffe OG trilogy, or massive saga, I would say, of films, and then the Fantastic Beasts movies in the film universe. But seeing it in a game, I think like about time. Like exploring Hogwarts and stuff and that magical land in a video game is long overdue. So even seeing properties like that turn into these big AAA experiences is what I personally, as a gamer at heart, have been waiting for years. And Suicide Squad's also planned to come out in 2022. I definitely think that we will most likely see one of these games get pushed back to the further year of 2023. And I definitely think that one of those, sadly, might be the Suicide Squad game. But we will see.
I kind of feel like if Suicide Squad gets delayed, it could also give it some breathing room, because if the movie doesn't do well, and
That's true.
everything with like fan reception and how Warner Brothers is really at a crossroads of what's going on over there, it could be kind of good to distance yourself from it.
It's kind of like what my sister said too one time. It was so funny. Like when she was talking about like some of the superhero films, she's really funny. She told me that one time. It's like, can't you just give them a break? Maybe like a year or two. Don't show them. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit, in a sense.
There is that fatigue, amongst like certain films or shows and stuff with these superhero properties. And that's why the games are so different, because all these developers have their own twist and take and flair input into a character you would not normally see in a film or a comic that's maybe controlled a bit differently, or maybe their stories play out differently, or what they're able to do in a game versus a movie is a lot more exciting or a lot more engaging than what you would normally see on screen or on page. And for me, it's like there's always that argument, the superhero fatigue. Like MCU is just milking it at this point. It's too much. And me, I'm like, it's cool they're doing these shows with Wanda and Vision, with Falcon Winter Soldier. We're getting a Loki show. We're getting Armor Wars and What If and all these interesting premises. But just for someone like me, I'm just personally not interested in them. But it's cool that they do have their own respective audiences that do have that appeal for those type of experiences that normally wouldn't really be seen as like a proper installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as like a proper lineup of films. But now they're kind of, again, expanding into a different format of entertainment that is new and interesting. And like, weekly episodes for this engaging show. Like, oh my God, this happened in Falcon Winter Soldier. What's going to happen next week? Well, stay tuned. Kind of like those older shows that can happen, like Twilight Zone, or like even the old 60s Adam West cartoon with Batman. Like, that's the hotness, because it's so good. But it's cool to see, even with games, movies, shows, all of it's evolving in the entertainment realm that's not really seen before. And that, I think, is really revolutionary in that front compared to the comics or just the old school cartoons, like the Saturday morning cartoons that we watched as kids. It's now kind of maturing as we mature. Like the shows have like more serious and darker themes. I think there's even like, I haven't seen the show fully, but I believe there's like therapy sessions with Bucky, kind of diving into his inner psyche. So there's a lot more inner, spectacle moments with the person under the mask, pretty much, or finding out more about that person.
And we actually did write about that, Brandon and I, in our article about how mental health, like superheroes, actually do struggle with that. And you even see a comic about it one time too, with Heroes in Crisis, written by Tom King. I thought it was an amazing comic. And that it was a reminder that even superheroes, as powerful as they are, or as skilled as they are, they go through so much mental health, especially with the stuff that they see and the villains that they have to fight. It takes a toll. It takes a huge toll.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, if you haven't read Heroes in Crisis, I mean, one of the heroes just goes off the edge. I mean, Wally West basically just kills everybody because this dude is going through so much, like missing his family. His wife and kids are gone. And he's like in this whole universe that looks familiar though, but doesn't feel familiar because his family's missing. And that takes a toll on somebody when your family's gone.
I also remember, like, when we wrote our article and stuff, it was beautiful to see, and I brought this up in one of my classes, how WandaVision was a social commentary for like how mental health is really displayed in this country, and also the 5 stages of grief. And when you look at Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's I wrote in one of my articles, it's a blueprint for how soldiers react without a leader, and like how racism is really affected in this country, and people are afraid to tug on that. So when you see Marvel Studios using this conduit of Disney Plus storytelling, it's pretty prolific because you can target those audiences that you never thought that you could when you would put a blockbuster on the screen. And it's in families and it's in homes, and it really gets out to the viewer, and people start talking, and it just starts to make an impact. And you have these kids growing up watching this, and you're really molding them to realize superheroes are humans. This is like us. Our world is bleeding into their world now.
And that's the coolest part, is that about both Marvel and DC, they each have characters that we as the audience can resonate with and connect with on such a personal level, that not only can show us different aspects of ourselves that we're not really used to, but also show us how we can even further expand ourselves and better ourselves and possibly strive towards something better, or something a bit maybe darker, like maybe with certain characters that have kind of, tonal differences, and depending on how their characters are portrayed with other character interactions and stuff like that, how it mirrors life in itself. Like the eye is the window to the soul. So like Marvel's like, well, we are the window to reality, like trying to show you how we perceive reality in such a actual realistic level, while also throwing in stuff like, of course, spider pigs and multiverse and like all this crazy stuff, but in a really cool and fun way that actually hits home and kind of makes sense. Like I, besides Spider-Man, really love Daredevil and Matt Murdock because of how he has a disability and he overcomes it by being his best self. And of course, he has the added, ability of extra senses, and the radar sense is kind of a way that lets him see things. So you could say it's maybe not a specific disability, but in a way, he is not a, fully, all there human. He does have something to have a disadvantage, and people look up to a character like Matt Murdock, or, even I think a character that Bill Roseman brought up, a Blue Ear, who suffers from deafness, and also Hawkeye as well has, partial deafness in certain comic runs. So they can, see that, wow, these characters are like me, or I can really relate to these characters that I wouldn't relate to a character like, say, Superman or whatever. But at the same time, like, well, I do really relate to Superman in a really cool way, because he's just a farm boy from Kansas doing his best, like, so it's really cool to have that symmetry and dichotomy between the viewer slash reader slash fan versus these icons. And even you put them on a pedestal like me, but of course behind me you see all these major posters and artworks of my favorite superhero of all time, which I think might be Wonder Woman, maybe. Oh no, it's Spider-Man. Sorry. So with all that, it's just because of how deeply rooted and I'm sure Brendan and Brian here agree with the character of Peter Parker on such a deeply heartfelt level that can't be acquired in any other form of just media in general, besides that of what we've seen them in as comics, movies, games, shows, and etc. And seeing how that's expanding even further in the future with even more characters like Miss Marvel in the Avengers game, leading that title. Whether you like the game or not for what it is, I still give huge credit to Crystal Dynamics and the writers from Marvel and that team, making her the lead protagonist of that title as a person of color, and also, inputting her heritage, or Muslim heritage, into her background. And that's really, and it feels natural. It's not forced in any way. It actually is a part of her character in a believable, realistic, and mainly respected manner. It's not just there to be inserted and just call it a day. It's there with purpose. It's there with meaning, and it's there with heart, which I care about the most. And I love that it is expanded more in the games and the movies and the comics, but how that's continuing on even more down the line is always great to see in all mediums.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
It was extremely organic the way they did it and stuff, and especially last year with how you had Miles Morales and his title, and how I remember like playing the scene in his apartment, and you hear the Perry Como going, and you Dolce de Leche, and you hear all the Spanish being, and the game you can play it with, and you hear Miles and his mom talking in fluent Spanish, and you can turn off the subtitles, and it was great to see, because my sister-in-law, she's Puerto Rican. She came in and she goes, "Bren, what are you playing?" I was like, "I'm playing Spider-Man." And I turned off the subtitles for her to listen, and she goes, fluent Spanish? I was like, no, but I want to do the catch on that because I'm learning right now. And she goes, that is great. I love to see that. She goes, I actually have a character that resonates with me because I've been there. My aunt's house was like that, the way Miles' apartment was. It was just great. It wasn't shoehorned. It felt organic. It felt right. You give justice to the characters. Harlem was a beautiful expansion of what New York was in Peter's eyes. But when you see it through Miles and like how you're on the subway and he's just there and he's walking and it's Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales, but then it's just I could go on and on just because in the beginning of Spider-Man PS4 when you open the credits, this is Spider-Man. He's on the Empire State Building. He's looking down at the city. When you start up Miles, you're on the subway with the people and you evolve into Spider-Man. And it's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, like, I haven't played the game, confession, but, after hearing so many good things about Spider-Man 4, and especially Spider-Man Miles Morales, I mean, I've seen some clips of it too. It just makes me want to play the game more, and just how he really resonates with the people. And also, too, like, in the end of the game, spoiler alert, like, I like the part where they're saying, like, oh, who's that? Is that Spider-Man? He's like, well, he's our Spider-Man. That really struck me. I was like, whoa. And like his mother being there too, and finding out like their son actually is one of the Spider-Men. And then like towards the end too, where he talks to Peter, and it's almost like a passing of the torch in a sense. I really like that.
It's really just incredible how they're able to just convey such generosity and sincerity between the player and the game character itself, and whether or not that's Peter Parker or Miles Morales, whoever, just having that physical connection of actually being that character for a brief time.
Yeah.
Like controlling them while they're eating dinner during Christmas, controlling them while they're swinging through buildings. Like,
yeah,
it's so cool to have that level of groundedness that's really special. Like that you won't get that by watching a movie, reading a comic, looking at a subtext or something. You actually are there in the moment with the player and the character synonymously, and it's so amazing to have that experience and just captivate like even further into next gen. Now, I don't have a PlayStation 5.
I don't either, man.
Yeah,
I don't either. I have a PC.
That's what I'm talking about. Boom, PS4 gang, rise up. That's what I'm talking about.
But what you said too, like, it reminded me of what Stan Lee said about that anyone could be Spider-Man, especially when they put on the mask. Like, anybody can be Spider-Man, whether you're black, white, yellow, whatever. You can be Spider-Man. And that's
what makes it so special.
That's what makes it exactly so special. I mean, if they see this mask right here, I mean, you know who that is.
Batman, I think. Probably.
I also
not too sure. No.
I gotta say one thing, and when you play Spider-Man PS4 and you experience everything, and Peter gets locked out of his apartment, Aunt May, you're crying there, you're seeing the expression on Yuri's face, and you're crying with them. You're experiencing that, you're holding that, you have the same tears flooding down your face. But when you play Miles, you see like a progression of the story and how Peter starts to let people back into his life. And he really starts to remember what made Spider-Man Spider-Man, because he was distant from MJ in the beginning of it. He was on his own. He didn't know what he wanted with his life. You have that relationship with Doc Ock, and then you're sitting there and you're like, don't do this to me, Brian and Thar. Don't do this to me, because, comic accurate, you're going to, and then you were like a son to me. You were everything I wanted to be. And you're just like, okay, why'd you do that? Okay, here we go. But it was so poetic the way they writ the arc of Peter Parker and Insomniac. And I will go out on a limb and say this. When you play the Spider-Man PS4 series, it feels like an adult continuation of the animated series with Christopher McDaniel Barnes, just along the lines of Batman Arkham being the continuation of the animated series.
I can see that for sure. And I love that show too. And you guys know me, I think at this point, that my favorite animated Spider-Man cartoon is the MTV one, shockingly enough, with Neil Patrick Harris. That's my guy. But yeah, the 90s show is fantastic. And I love that.
That was the OG, man. That was the OG. Yeah. And the music too, the intro, man, that jingle. Chills down the spine.
Good. Yeah, dude.
And
spectacular.
And I was going to ask you too. Speaking of all that, what was your first encounter with Spider-Man? When did you first meet him? Because I remember Superman's one of my favorite heroes, and my first encounter with Superman was when I watched the Christopher Reeve movies, and after that, when I was a 6-year-old kid, I would like fly around with like a dish towel on my back wearing as a cape. And I think I broke some things too, but
Superman in training. That's perfect.
Exactly.
I'm right there with you. I still have my Spider-Man undies literally in the drawer closet right there. Not kidding. Literally fact. I promise you. And for me, I think you might be able to see it behind me, even though it's not of the main movie, but the first Tobey Maguire movie. Specifically remember, in my house, VHS tape, almost broken CRT TV, static everywhere, could barely pick out the picture properly, but it's all we had at the time. And I still saw the movie with that, not in theaters, but in such a poorly, portrayed image quality, and it still blew my mind. And that was my first ever experience to the character, and then that expanded even more with my dad, helped me with the comics and the games, and we played every single Spider-Man game together, and also Ultimate Spider-Man with, OG Brian Michael Bendis, Peter Parker Ultimate Spider-Man. Those were the kind of entry points, and then, of course, I kind of backtracked to the Ditko run, Tom McFarlane, all these eras. And just so fantastic stories, captivated by Peter's character and his arc, and just of course, connecting with someone who's always down on his luck, who's always kind of beating himself up, sadly, with certain times in his life, but he's still willing and continuing to fight for what he believes in and for the others in his life that give him strength. And that's what I think, of course, Spider-Man is all about, is just being there for the people you care about and never giving up and never faltering for your own ideals. And that's such an impactful message that like you said, Brian, anyone can really aspire to be a hero in their own way through those methods and through those mindsets and those ideologies in such fantastical and amazing ways. It's beautiful. And yeah, for the first Tobey movie, I loved it. And then that was kind of like just the start of where it really, continued to bounce off. And funny enough, I also watched the 90s series. I loved it. And the Neil Patrick Harris show was spectacular, though. I didn't watch it until years later. I know it was around a lot in 2008, and then it got canceled, sadly, after season 2. But I only watched it after it was off air, because for some reason it was never on networks on my cable channels that I had at home, and I had to pick up the DVDs for it. So then I got it later on. And I was like, this is really good, but I still prefer the 90s show more. Sorry, Spectacular fans, but I just rolled that way.
And speaking of the show, do you remember after the 90s show, they also had Spider-Man, I think it was Unlimited or something, where he
yes, dude!
The alternate, Woo! Yeah.
Oh, that theme song, baby, is so good.
Yeah. Oh, he was in what, alternate New York or something. I forget what it was.
It's pretty much like a discount Spider-Man 2099 show.
Yeah.
Is what they wanted to do.
Okay.
He's in a alternate reality, not the future, but an alternate reality with animal cross-species humans, and he's there trying to find Jonah Jameson's son. He has a web cape, yes, which is sick. I love that suit. Voiced by my man Rino Romano, the voice of the PlayStation 1 era Spider-Man from those games.
Yeah, I remember, and the Batman also.
And the Batman, which was fantastic too. Ooh, and yeah, just that series, sadly, it didn't last too long, only one season, but I think it's highly underrated and definitely deserves a rewatch if you guys are interested, viewers listening. But yes, that's such a good show.
It'd be a fantastic remaster along with the 90s series. That'd be a great treat for Spidey fans.
Oh, yeah.
Nowadays, man, we just have such bad stuff, bro. It hurts. Ultimate Spider-Man was fine. For what it was okay. And then we got Marvel's Spider-Man on Disney XD. I love Robbie Damon so much. If you guys know me, Persona 5, he voices Akechi. Such a good voice actor in general. Prompto from Final Fantasy 15. He's great. Not good as Peter. Or at least not the way that they portray him as Peter. It's terrible. I'm so sorry.
How about when he was Superior Spider-Man too? The way he had the regal Octavius accent or something, which was
because he was the weird thing. Think about this for a second. If you were in his shoes, he was a voice actor mimicking the role of another voice actor's performance, who was trying to mimic the role of the main character he was playing in a more evil version of the character he's already as.
Yeah.
What? So there's all these layers of what is happening? And it was so bad. And that series, just the animation quality, ugh, no. And thank God we don't have to worry about that with Into the Spider-Verse and the sequel that's coming out soon for that film and that series, which is great. But for the cartoons, we need to upgrade fast, boys. I'm sorry, but we gotta release release the Snyder cut, release the Schumacher cut. We need to release the Spider-Man cut for something for these cartoons. Release the unlimited cut. We need it.
Yeah, but that's the beauty about it, though. The games are fantastic, so it kind of
Yes,
makes up for it.
exactly. That's the future, honestly, for me. Like the movies are going to be great.
I agree with you on
TV
that.
shows are expanding. Yeah, they're doing great jobs. The actors clearly really envelop those roles. Like shout out to Wyatt Russell, my man, who I didn't even know was Kurt Russell's son, which was crazy.
Oh yeah, U.S. agent John Walker.
Yes, getting death threats for no reason as U.S.
He's a
agent
heel.
in the show.
I mean, he's portraying he's portraying like a heel. He's portraying like someone who's like not liked. And he's basking in the glory for that. And
it's like that's the point. And like the people who are like against him for that or like sending him threats, like you guys are literally
you're feeding the fire.
Smooth brains. Yeah, like it's insane. But it's like that's kind of like that. But in a way, it's great that he's getting that reception because of how well he's doing in the role.
Exactly.
You know, like
he's
they
doing
hate
a good
him
job
so much for his character that he's portraying a role as that they despise him in real life. So meaning he's doing a fantastic job. And just in general, like I loved him in Black Mirror as well. I love that show. He was in one of my favorite episodes of that. He was in that. So good. So I haven't even seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I would literally watch it for Wyatt Russell. So it's great.
And it just reminds me of like a quote from Ric Flair. I think it was from Ric Flair, the 16-time world heavyweight champion. To be the man, you gotta beat the man. He even one time said that, you know, if they're not hating you, man, if they are hating you, you're doing something right, you know. And I think that's what it reminds me of. Like he's doing something right, you know. I mean, he's the U.S. You know, he's Captain America though, but technically he's U.S. agent John Walker.
Yeah.
There's a great dichotomy about the character though too, and the scene from spoilers from episode 2 where it's like he's at his old high school and stuff, his alma mater. He comes back, he's standing there with his wife, he's looking at his old locker, he's like, I can't do this, I'm not ready to do this, I'm not ready to take up the mantle. The minute his buddy from the army comes in, he's like, you ready? He looks over at the costume, he looks at the shield, he's like, yeah, let's do it. He runs out the fanfare, and then literally I'm watching it and I was like, okay, this is a satire on what Steve went through in the first Avenger. And this is basically what Erskine was terrified of. With the serum, you take a good man, but not a perfect soldier. The reason Cap was a great Cap is because he was a good man. John Walker's the perfect soldier. He's out there saying, I'm not trying to be Cap, I'm not trying to be Dr. Banner. But you're also putting the American flag on your shoulder and stuff and saying, I'm Captain America now.
Taking up the shield,
picking up the shield. When you didn't get it transferred to you, there was no transfer of power, and he's out there signing autographs, and he's literally making a parody of what Captain America stood for.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's why I thought of like I wrote like a review of the U.S. Agent written by the great Christopher Priest, who also wrote Black Panther and Batman vs. Deathstroke. And I wrote in my review that he, you know, basically the U.S. agent is sort of like a parody of Captain America. And there's even this part, if you look at the panels of that comic too, there's this part where his shield, he has his own shield, but then it gets banged up. It's not vibranium. It's just a hunk of metal. And he gives it to these kids, and these kids are all excited, saying that, oh crap, it's Captain America's shield. But like, wait a minute. And it's like a dent on it. And he's just like, you know, he's just a total joke, a parody, and he's just like eating, you know, he eats like alone, and like, I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being alone though, but he's like eating pizza, like, it's just, I'm not saying he's pathetic though, but in a sense, he's kind of like a joke almost in that comic.
Right.
I also feel, sorry to cut you off.
Oh no, go for it.
Oh, okay. I also feel like that dent in the shield is really reflective and allegorical of like how broken his personality is. And he's trying to maintain something he can't be. He's trying to fill the shoes of someone that could never be filled. And that's the beauty about Bucky and Sam in this. Sam's a good man. Bucky's a perfect soldier. But Bucky's also trying to atone for the blood on his hands.
I never thought of it that way. That was pretty good. I mean, Bucky the perfect soldier and Sam being the good man. Like,
it's really, really like impactful, especially like for the films themselves with Endgame. You know, like we see Steve old, you know, because he lived his life out with that timeline after putting everything back in the stones and Mjolnir and deciding, you know, I want to kind of live for myself for once after all this crazy stuff
he
happened.
earned it.
Yeah, he totally earned it. And with all that, he wanted to continue his legacy with the one person that he thought had earned it and valued it the most, which was Sam Wilson. Not even his best friend Bucky Barnes, but he thought Sam was more fitting for that position. And then, of course, that's continuing out in the show, but just seeing how Steve in that moment thought, you know, who could hold up the ideals of Captain America the most, and that's Sam. So it's really cool to have that, you know, poetry between the two, the original kind of like the partner, and then the new generation of the hero in that way.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, so like with basically with the whole, I mean, it's gonna be really interesting to see like how that unfolds, especially too, like when John Walker slips up, especially, like there's gonna be a crack at some point, like it's brewing, like I can totally see it brewing. And I think I saw in the last episode too, where I noticed this in the scene too in the last episode where he breaks into the Flag Smashers where they were hiding out, and he's trying to speak to this guy, and he just doesn't level with him. At least if it was, I even thought of this when I was watching. I was like, if it was Steve Rogers would at least try to talk to the guy. He wouldn't necessarily threaten him like, "Oh, I'm gonna crush your bones to dust." Whereas John Walker was kind of like that. He was spoiling for a fight, and that's why the guy spat at him. And it took Lamar Hoskins, his Bucky, to be like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 wait a minute." And he was like more grounded than he was. And it's like, shoot, man, like maybe they should have given Lamar Hoskins the shield instead of him. This guy's a hothead, you know? Because like Steve Rogers, I mean, at the very least, he was level-headed. He tried to level with people, even with people who were his enemies. He would try to like level with them because that's who he was. Like that's who the real Captain America was. Now John Walker, he's just a meathead. No, I mean, no offense, but it's just when I saw that, I'm like, wow. If this was Steve Rogers, I mean, it wouldn't be like that.
Also to note, when he's like interrogating that guy, he lets out like a childish yell, showing how
Yeah.
immature he really is. Like he screamed at the guy. He's like, "Do you know who I am?" And he's just like, "Yeah, you're a fake," and
Yeah,
it
it's
pissed
like
him off.
I don't give a shit, kind of like,
Yeah.
He's like, "What's up? What are you gonna do?" That's right, nothing. But
It's like, yeah, you're
it's
wearing
crazy.
the suit.
Yeah,
Like just because you carry a shield in a suit doesn't mean Jack. Get out of here. It's like it's like you don't scare me.
right.
Yeah.
So Evan,
Yes.
we touched on the movies, we touched on the games, we touched on the TV. Anything else? Like this is your chance to shine, man.
Oh, bro.
The floor is yours, bro.
No pressure or nothing. I just think that in general, the medium of just comics is going in places that I think that are going to revolutionize the entertainment industry. I mean, that's not a small statement of by any means or a meme or what. I genuinely think that. I mean, look at what's happened recently. Like we're getting these television shows based off these characters that you would think would never get their own shows. Loki, a standalone show just about Loki. Falcon Winter Soldier, Armor Wars with Don Cheadle as War Machine, all these other, like what else? The Shang-Chi movie and all that. Miss Marvel. Give me a show. Yeah. Moon Knight. My God.
Moon Knight, yeah.
All these
Oscar Isaac, man.
Yeah, baby. He's going to kill it. Oh, I'm so excited for that one. I don't even have Disney Plus, but I would watch it just for him. But yeah, like all these properties, in the medium of entertainment is the thing that's getting the most attention. Like not these, indie movies or these kind of like normal like types of films without well-known characters or properties. It's based off these icons that are getting their own standalone properties, and they're the most watched and most financially profitable, marketable items that are hot right now and probably going to be continuing to thrive for the next decade or so, even more. if things keep going the way they're going right now, especially with sadly how the world is nowadays, like just instant access, like with just the shows on HBO Max, or the Snyder Cut, I should say, on HBO Max, and the Marvel shows on Disney Plus, and just these experiences, like of course Godzilla versus Kong, just entertainment is what people need right now to have normal life. Like it's like we need these types of shows. We need a giant monkey fighting a giant lizard in a movie to just bring us some joy for 2 hours and stuff. Like I haven't even seen the film, but Team Godzilla all the way, bro. So
hey, I'm Team Godzilla.
That's right.
I'm Godzilla.
Radioactive lizard versus some big ape. Come on, bro. We know who's winning. So it's like that. Those types of experiences, and seeing how much people love them. And even though people keep saying, well, we're getting too much, it's the fatigue that's kicking in. Oh, I've seen all the Marvel stuff. It's clearly not what the sales are saying. It's clearly not what the reviews are saying.
Nope.
So I don't know what they're talking about. But it's like when you see how people are receiving these, they want more. And meaning, the great thing about that is the more that they like what's being provided to them with these properties, the more risks the creators can take. Like, what if we get a show about, like the Stargirl show that's already exists? That's a thing. Or like the DC shows with their characters, or some more lesson like Speedball or something, or, like a villain series kind of similar to Loki. Like if we got a show about, Clayface, I don't know, like just something crazy amongst that sense, like these characters have such lore and history to them that really make you resonate with them on a level that's not achievable through just a 20-30 page comic or a little novel of sorts that kind of dives into the background of how the characters were made. But the games, the shows, and the movies all have areas that are infinite of possibilities, with the Multiverse of Madness, with Doctor Strange, with Elizabeth Olsen, which is also there. So that, and of course, for you Spidey fans out there, that's directed by Sam Raimi, so you get a win-win there. So, there's all these different types of, entertainment pieces that can be done, that they can further even more and revolutionize how we consume media, with either instant access through, these streaming services, or in theaters, or the types of things that they can create with a movie or a show that's not really known before with these characters. And same thing with the games, in the sense of how we've always had Spider-Man games, not just the Insomniac ones, but we've always had Spider-Man games. We've always had Batman games. But now you see they're starting to do something a bit different, where even though Avengers was financially a loss, I at least appreciate them for doing something a bit different, a live service Avengers game. That's a cool idea. Gotham Knights, a 4-player co-op brawler DC game with the Bat family. That's cool. That's new. That's different. And that's exciting. Instead of just another Batman game. Suicide Squad as well. And the leaks, the Guardians of the Galaxy game, and possibly, if it happens, I'm going to cry if it doesn't, a Remedy Games, who made Alan Wake and Control, if you guys know those games, a Doctor Strange game by them.
That
would
awesome.
be insane, bro. I'm telling you right now, a solo standalone Doctor Strange game, I need it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, do these unique experiences, whether that be a show, movie, or game, that does the character justice. Not just make a show that can be well received because a character is simply in it. That's one of the reasons why Avengers didn't review so hot for some people and sell so well for specific consumers, because the game itself did not do the characters justice. It did things right with the story, but the way it's structured as the live service type of oriented gameplay, with the repetitive looting and grinding, that doesn't scream Avengers to me. That doesn't really iterate the team in their full glory.
And I thought, it maybe had something to do with the fact that Square Enix was used to, making RPGs or games like Final Fantasy, for instance. Maybe, they weren't quite, they're not really quite, used to making superhero games. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
No, it's a great point, because, it's like, I brought this up in previous streams and discussions too. It's like, you wouldn't make Naughty Dog create a driving game.
Exactly.
Right. That's not really suited to their best interests. Now, they could do it, but it's not what they're known for. So why would you take, Square Enix, why would they take a single-player centric developer like Crystal Dynamics, who's made the Tomb Raider games, which I'm a major fan of. I love the first one that they did in 2013. That's my favorite one. And make them do a live service title, which is a genre they've never done. So that makes, for me, little to no sense, which is why the Insomniac partnership was so profitable and beneficial because, oh, that's right, they did do action-adventure open-world games before with Sunset Overdrive, and some of the Ratchet and Clank games are just action-adventure oriented, really great, captivating, single-player, story-driven games like those, and incorporate that for a character that really suits that type of gameplay that they can conduct. And so take the open world, take the story, take the action. Do who that for? Oh yeah, Spider-Man. That works perfectly. Avengers. Emotes, Fortnite dancing, grinding for gear. Looter shooter. Let's do Avengers. It's like that doesn't make sense. I would take a step back and rethink that. So that's where I think the creativity amongst the publishers with Marvel and Square needs to change, and hopefully what the leaks are indicating, not rumors, but actual leaks, that the Guardians of the Galaxy game will not be live service, is developed by Eidos Montreal, and is going to be an open-world, action-adventure, story-driven, possibly co-op game, again, with no live service elements. So that, I think, is a shift in the right direction. I think that's going to kind of help the partnership kind of go in the better way than what we currently have now with Avengers. And of course, seeing the major success of Spider-Man on PS4, the remaster on PS5, and Miles on both platforms, it's just making the Spider-Man property even more eye-catching. And of course, now everyone, including Brendan and Brian, are like, "Where's a sequel?" And myself, of course.
Yeah.
I haven't stopped thinking about it since I beat Miles. Of course, Harry being Venom. Ooh, need that right now. So once they, of course, reveal that, not only is the interest in gaming going to skyrocket even more because financially it was reported that the gaming industry last year in 2020 made more revenue than both the North American sports industry and film industry combined.
See, that's a sign of the times, man, because
combined.
That's huge.
That's a sign of the times because it's like, not to go off on a little bit of a slight tangent.
Yeah.
With I sometimes look at the forums with AEW, for instance, All Elite Wrestling and WWE saying that, they're beating them in the TV ratings. I'm like, okay, be as it may though, there's a new kid in town called streaming. Now they're not gonna, it's gonna be a couple of years from now that they're gonna pay more attention to the streaming services rather than the cable TV. I mean, you could look at TV all you want though, but there's another, they're streaming. That's a new kid in town right now. They're gonna look at how many people use streaming. I mean, everything is changing right now, and it's in motion. It's fluid. So I mean,
we're in the golden age.
We're in the golden age. Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy that we're seeing it play out live, each day when we, as consumers, and the coolest thing about this is we have a voice in how the future goes. Yeah. Like, we can pay for these experiences, like
exactly
a Godzilla versus Kong movie. We of course want to see that because it's hilarious and just is so funny to see that just be the most financially successful movie in 2021.
By the way, I was kind of rooting for Kong, but hey.
Yeah, bro.
Team Godzilla, man. Team Zilla.
Bro, where's Mecha Kong versus Mechazilla? Come on.
That would be a good one, too.
That's coming in next. But it's just crazy. Like that, again, that creates a hot conversation. That creates interest amongst the consumer base, the fans, and just the
it's going to get fans glued.
Yeah, and gets them invested to see where these franchises or properties, and mainly the characters and their stories, will go next. That's the main thing, is that it's not about a franchise and building it with the Star Wars, for example, with J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson, we're going to make the 3 epilogue movies.
They wanted to make it like Avengers. Trilogy. That's what they were aiming
That's
for.
what they tried to do, and then they,
and that's why it flopped.
We're not going to talk about that one, but basically, in the sense of what can we do as creators in their position, they're thinking to serve key characters and the creators and the justice to their stories to even captivate all audiences everywhere, not just in the States, not just in the younger audience, but anybody, anywhere within all these franchises. And you partaking in viewing a movie or playing a game or reading a comic, you are then creating a difference in that genre.
And
It's
that's
so
why I
cool to
think,
see.
in my opinion, and this is what I always talk about this a whole lot. And, Todd McFarlane, you probably know the history too of the fact that he had to like fight to actually have Spider-Man's webs drawn a certain way and his eyes drawn a
Mm-hmm.
certain way. And the Marvel brass is like, oh, Todd, the fans are not going to buy that. And he's like, I think they will. And sure enough, they did. The fans were like, this is awesome. And Marvel right now is selling T-shirts with Spider-Man. Guess what? With big eyes, like with the
Yeah.
same thing with Venom, because he drew that Spider-Man that way along with the webs. Now, if he didn't draw Spider-Man that way, pretty much, it wouldn't be where it's at today. I don't think it would. Marvel would have lost a whole lot of money because they were going through some stuff back then. But then Todd McFarlane came along, and when he drew Spider-Man, it looked epic, like iconic.
I think it's also cool to think about and stuff too. Is like when you saw the trailer, the very first trailer for Spider-Man PS4 at E3, and you see like the lenses retract, the retractable
The
lenses on the
retractable
Spidey vest,
lenses.
and I'm like, okay, Insomniac, take my money. You already
Simon, take
nailed
my
the
money.
character. Yeah, the beauty about it is that Disney Plus feels fresh. Like watching the Black Widow trailer feels like Mission Impossible.
Yep.
Loki feels like BioShock meets Fallout meets 2001: A Space Odyssey, Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's like a buddy cop thriller deep lined with PTSD trauma. WandaVision, social commentary, um, buried underneath like the family life and the what you strive for in your perfect reality.
And the nuclear
Just
family.
the nuclear family stuff that 10 years ago our childhood selves would have been like, I want to go see Captain America beat up someone and look cool.
Yeah.
And now they have all this range. It's so
Yeah.
cool, all these opportunities to do whatever they want, and people will watch it because it's new. That's the main thing. They're all leaving their own creative stamp on the character's legacy, not just the show or whatever. And with that moment in time, like, oh, the Avengers movie was cool and that's one and done. No, it's like that is literally encapsulating the character's legacy for all time, furthering their own point in history in this medium of pop culture and signifying their importance amongst fans and just people in general and how culturally relevant they are to this day, since the 60s till now, when that was kind of the booming of the comics. Yep. And then kind of foundation of all these characters, creations, and even before then. And now how they're continuing even further in routes that people would never have expected in these movies or shows. And it's like same thing with like Insomniac, the teaser trailer. Like when I have the best story, like when they first showed it, like the rumor was Sucker Punch was doing it, not Insomniac. So like, okay, I'm looking for the Sucker Punch logo the entire time as 18 years old, watching that trailer for the first time, or the live stream of E3 and Sony at home. And I was like, okay, I guess it's not here. And then I hear this narration from this guy, like about people see me think they're safer. Like, okay, fine. I guess it's not happening. And then Insomniac, like, I guess it's really not happening. And then I see the street. And for some reason, I see the pizza sign on the left side of the street. And then I hear him say Queens. I'm like, you better shut your mouth. There's no way. And then they show the Marvel logo and that big ass white spider suit, baby. I'm like, oh my God, they are madmen. There's no way. I'm crying. And literally that whole scene in the parkour shot in the cafe. Ooh, sad that wasn't in the game. Crying, but still gorgeous. But just seeing that, like, right then and there, like, I'm a fan of the Raimi movies. I went on record saying this. My favorite one is the first one. Because probably it
hands
might
down,
be
dude,
nostalgia related or whatever. But I genuinely think, like, Toby's performance and Willem Dafoe and the effects still are pretty good to this day for a movie in 2002. And just the action was great. And I like it a lot more than Spider-Man 3 and the MCU stuff, but no dissing on them, just preferences. But seeing all those films as a kid, I loved them. But nothing really grabbed me, really like actually pulled out of the screen, watching from 18, really grabbed me as seeing this character that I've loved and we've loved growing up as kids for so long in a AAA video game setting. Like what we've received with Batman, or just these other amazing experiences like Uncharted, or what Insomniac previously did with Sunset Overdrive and Ratchet & Clank. And thinking back then, since I'm a big gamer, I'm mainly a gamer compared to a movie lover, So seeing that and having all this, background of playing these games, I'm like, they are going to do something that's never been done before for Spider-Man. seeing him be treated in this high caliber quality, and then following that with the game that we ended up getting, with the story that we played out, with the emotional roller coaster that we invested in with these characters, was unlike anything and nothing I will ever experience in any other form of media ever. I can guarantee you that right now. No matter how No Way Home turns out, or the next Spider-Verse movie, or even the sequel for Spider-Man in the games, nothing will compare to the experience I had when seeing those trailers for the first time and playing the game for the first time, and of course being able to actually just form and help create, not even directly, but just be a wonderful inclusion of this amazing group of amazing individuals of the Spidey Squad, and just how much passion that character can convey to anyone worldwide in such a marvelous manner that I don't think I've personally seen anywhere else. Maybe the movies with Avengers and Endgame and stuff got everyone hyped, but for the journey that I personally went on with the people I've encountered and the experience I've had with this property, it means so much to me. And seeing the success it has gained from it, mainly with just gaming as a medium and taking it seriously from people like, this game, whatever. If someone had that reaction, like, oh, a Spider-Man game, that's cool, but I'll take the movie instead. Having it be treated on the same level as these other properties, seeing it as an equal basis for a product of entertainment is insane, and something that has never happened before with, I would say, superhero games, and just the quality of the experience matching that of other things that we have in our current form of entertainment. So I'm just ecstatic to see where the future goes. I think that superheroes convey such importance to our livelihoods and really inspire us to achieve things that aren't really manageable in our real lives. And seeing how that we can insert ourselves in these characters and their adventures and what they go through in our own day-to-day lives, and helping us become better from that, is outstanding. So I'm just super grateful for what that medium in general has done.
I think it's why the perfect taglines for both of the games is be greater and be yourself, because Spider-Man could be anyone. Anyone can wear the mask. And what they did with this franchise, how they have to quote High Top Films, the Raimi respect. You have the moments where Peter's on top of the crane and he's texting MJ, I'll talk to you later. Oh, we're done. And he goes, wait, what did I do? Like, we all had these moments. It's human.
Yep.
We all texted girls are like, are things okay? They don't respond. They text back. They're like, yeah, you did something wrong. You're trying to figure it out. The awkward first dates, getting locked out of your apartment. You didn't pay the rent. The final battle, for spoilers, of Spider-Man PS4, how it's a mix of all three Spider-Man movies. You have the mask getting broken from Tobey. They're on top of Oscorp from Andrew Garfield. And then just the Stark element and just Peter building his own costume and stuff from Far From Home. I know, sorry,
It's okay. No worries.
It's all cool, man.
But you know what I mean, though.
Yes, of course.
But the advanced suit, though, whenever I play Spidey PS4, I always play it one time through. I play it with the advanced suit to see how it looks. And then I'm like, okay, I'll see how the other suits look. They look phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. It looks great.
Suits
the
are
MCU
amazing.
suits, the Garfield suits look great. The comic suits. But just seeing that big white spider and just the red and the blue contrast to it and the retractable lenses and how it pops on screen. And then same with Miles' costume. Just Insomniac, their designs are some of the best I've ever seen for the character.
And now they're cemented in his history. Like, oh, I know that suit from the Raimi movie with the, the exterior webbing, the outer more popped up web, the raised webbing and all that. Oh, I know the movie from the Amazing series with the goggles, the yellow shades and all that. And the MCU suits, of course. And all these comic suits, of course. Scarlet Spider looks amazing in the game. $20.99. Great. The Ghost Spider, the Spirit Spider suit.
It's like all
crazy,
these homages,
but cool.
Yeah.
And then you have their own original suits. The Resilient suit, the Velocity suit, the Advanced suit, the Anti-Ox suit. One of my favorites. And now there are people, the new generation Z, whatever's after Z, they are now growing up with that in their heads as one of the main definitive interpretations of this character. Not like, oh, it's a game and that was fun, but seeing like, oh, he has now cemented himself, this version of Spider-Man, and even to another extent, if you don't like it or dislike it, that's, your prerogative. But the Avengers game as well with Square Enix, they are also now cementing their own history with the characters. However, Black Panther ends up down the line with Christopher Judge voicing T'Challa in that game's universe, that will cement that character's history in pop culture media for eternity. That is now part of that character. That is now part of their lore and background. And seeing how people are now recognizing that these pieces of entertainment, just like Into the Spider-Verse as well, an animated movie captivating Miles Morales in such an engaging way that's never been seen before, has now officially become part of his history. And that is something that only those forms of media can accomplish. And how that will progress in the future will only be bigger and better down the line. And it's crazy to think that.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Because, like, I remember, when I first was introduced to, like, alternate versions of Spider-Man, I was playing the game, like, the PS1 game, Spider-Man 2 Inter Electro. Really awesome game.
Dude. Ooh,
yeah, that's how old I am. Just kidding. But
I'm right there with you though. I played that exact game.
Yes. Yeah, it was just amazing seeing like the the symbiote suit, the amazing Bagman. He also had another suit that kind of protected him from being electrocuted, or like the armor suit. Mm-hmm. And there was also the ripped suit. Even that game had like a lot of suits, and Carnage. And speaking of alternate Spider-Man, like my favorite alternate Spider-Man would have to be Spider-Man Noir. I just like those times, during the Great Depression or pre-World War II, and that suit's just so awesome. I mean, with the goggles, and it looks really steampunkish, and with the fedora and like the trench coat, it's just, there's something about that Spider-Man that's just really cool. Who's your favorite alternate Spider-Man?
I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell behind me if I gave any hints to who it might be. No, yeah. It literally is. I'm serious. Like, I grew up with Toby, love his films. Andrew is great. Tom is fine. He just needs better writing for some of his movies. I've read all the comics. At least I hope I have. I've tried my best to read as much as I can. Not more of the recent stuff. I've kind of dropped off, to be honest. But in general, I would say either from the comics, if we're going that route, Ultimate Spider-Man is just such an interesting take on Peter that I think really hit the modern day era of the 2000s in a really accurate way. Yeah. And kind of updating, the story to kind of make it fit for current times and what was happening back then in the early 2000s for a new generation of newcomer fans, almost like myself, with the first Tobey movie being my first experience to the character, and now having that outlet to kind of continue on to research more about him in a different way that still keeps true to his core traits, but does things differently and kind of expands upon things in a new way that is different for current times, which is very cool. And how that also was expanded more for Miles in his early comics, and also Miguel O'Hara with the older 2099 comics, and all these other different versions like Hobie Brown as Spider-Punk and Aaron Eichmann, and of course Spider-Man Noir, like you said, and all these different versions, which are so captivating. But genuinely, for now, the current times, I'm still saying, even though it is still technically Peter Parker himself, the way on how they portray his character specifically has to go to, of course, the Insomniac version. Just the PS4 Marvel Spider-Man Peter Parker is, in my opinion, the best version of Peter that we have ever seen. I think that, in my personal opinion, I really relate to him because he's older, he's more experienced as his route as Spider-Man in his overall path of being a hero, but he's also battling himself in a way. Like, he's trying to still do things that he loves as Peter, be with Mary Jane, trying, rectify that relationship that he kind of messed up because of Spider-Man, but also in the sense of him helping others outside of the suit, doing things as a scientist with things that he loves doing, helping others with the prosthetics with, of course, Otto, who sadly turns evil, but he was doing his best to help others as Peter Parker, not as Spider-Man, and showing that in his own mind, thinking, I can help without putting myself in danger. I can help just as much as anyone else can with the gifts I've been given, but also the knowledge and the passion that I as a person have to help others in need. And seeing how
Yeah.
that literally is so special for who Spider-Man is, that who he is to a T. Of course, also with those added, features of financial problems, getting evicted, getting kicked out
Right.
of his girlfriend's apartment, before the game took place. Having also friendship problems with Harry, not being able to rectify certain things, not knowing that he was sick. Spoilers.
Yeah,
Venom.
like
Excited.
what you said, like reminded me of Spider-Man, or the Superior Spider-Man, which is one of my favorite Spider-Man stories. I read that thing like anything. I mean, at first I wasn't a whole fan. I wasn't a fan of the idea of having Peter swap bodies with Doc Ock. But
Mm-hmm.
when I read that, it was just another, it was an awesome Spider-Man story. And this was Doc Ock trying to be like Peter Parker, trying to trying to be better basically than who he was. That's why he called himself the Superior Spider-Man. And also trying to use his mind to like, I guess to try to like make his, with great power comes great responsibility. He had the great power, right, though, but then we realized that, he didn't really, he thought he had the responsibility, though, but it went overboard. And you see him build like all these spider bots. He made Parker Industries. He made Peter Parker a broke superhero into a rich dude. And it was so poetic when it finally ended, that arc. He told Peter that, you know what, you're the Superior Spider-Man. I'm just, Doc Ock. And you kind of see how those, how Peter and Doc Ock have so much in common. They were both bullied. They were both science nerds, and they had a lot. They went through a lot of trauma, and it. And when I read that, I was just like, "Wow, this is actually pretty good." I mean, Dan Slott wrote a really good, awesome Spider-Man story, and it shows that even Spider-Man, I feel, not only relates to all of us, but he also relates to some of his villains too, in a sense. And I felt like it was like coming full circle in a sense between hero and villain, like sort of like Doc Ock's hero's journey, only for him to end it so tragically when he decided to sacrifice himself to bring Peter back as the real Spider-Man to stop Goblin King. I mean, such a great story.
Do you think that Peter and Doc Ock have like that duality of the same personality in a way? Like how one is, with great power comes great responsibility, and he has those morals that Uncle Ben instilled into him. And then
Yeah.
over here, you have Otto, who is like driven himself into his work. He really doesn't have any connection to anybody, and he really
Mm-mm.
shut himself off from the world. And I feel Insomniac Spider Man really conveyed that well to the audience and to the player.
Yeah.
That at times and stuff, Otto was seduced by trying to make a living and stuff, trying to get his revenge on Osborn, but he also lost what made him him. And Peter told him that. He goes, "You were everything I wanted to be." And he's just like, he laughs it off. He says, "You were like a son to me," but you can see how broken Peter is because Peter was going down the path of Otto. He's pushing himself into work. He was losing Mary Jane. He was
Yep.
really losing what made him human and what made him Spider Man. He was blinded by the mask.
And it just
Wow.
shows how they're two sides of the same coin.
They
And that's the
are.
kind of like the big debate amongst fans, of course, like who's Spider-Man's real arch nemesis? Is it Venom? Is it Doc Ock? Or is it Green Goblin? I'm like, I'm in the form, shockingly enough. I do think it is Venom. I know that's kind of a hot take amongst some people, because of how he's really the antithesis, the symbiote specifically, of everything that Spider-Man represents. With great power comes great responsibility. But what if that power is too much and it corrupts who you are on the inside and takes you over,
Exactly.
and in turn manifests something within you that cannot be undone, meaning that the
Excellent
strength
point.
can envelop you in such a way that you're too far gone to come back, and you lose those ideals and how much you as a person can conduct good. With how little strength you may have, you still have the opportunity to do good. If that power overwhelms you, you are then trapped by the power and that darkness that can't be overtaken. Whereas for this, and again, really hope that's the theme for the sequel, Insomniac, if you're listening. Wink, just saying. But for this game in particular, Doc Ock and Peter's relationship, of course, mirrors that of Uncle Ben and Peter. Because in the game
Right.
specifically, he has that whole thing where, I sadly lost Uncle Ben. I'm there with my Aunt May. She's working at Feast with Martin Lee, but I'm there as Peter graduating college, continuing on with my own life, working with someone who holds the same ideals and the same mannerisms of heroism in the sense of trying to do good by others that I do, or at least what he originally thought. And then we find out later by the end during the final fight where he has that reflective moment of the same saying, like, we have the ability to do what's best for those beneath us, seeing that he views others under him. He's not on the same level, he's there above them. He has this kind of hierarchy amongst everyone else. And that's the exact opposite, of course, of what Uncle Ben taught Peter, saying that no matter who you are, what you can do, with the great power that you have in your heart and your soul, you then have a great responsibility to uphold those values for yourself and those around you. And I think that's such a wonderful lesson and such an impactful moment in that game to see, like, no, Peter's like trying to get him back, like thinking he can save Otto for a brief time. Like, no, you're wrong. You were everything I wanted to be. How could you do this to me? Like, how could you think of everything that I hold dear and just crush it into a billion pieces? And seeing that moment, that slight moment, which I love the detail that Insomniac put in the game, if you see Peter slowly walk towards Otto in that scene where he's like, please, Peter, I promise that wasn't me. The arms, they messed my brain, kind of like Spider-Man 2, where that in that sense of the movie, again, which I love the game more than the films, because in the film, it was an accident with the control chip and the tentacles overwhelming Otto, and sadly he lost Rosie, which then fueled his rage and kind of enhanced the anger that he had. But in reality, it was kind of like the mechanism controlling the human, the person, the soul of Otto. But in the game, it was Otto the entire time willingly making these decisions. And granted, there was that whole kind of little side mini game with the puzzle of seeing that it was the control chip, seeing that it was actually making his kind of brain, like, you know, messing with it a little bit, and he was kind of like deteriorating as well with his muscle disease, but also his genetic inability to live normally. But throughout that entire time, no matter what was happening with the arms, it was still Otto making these choices himself. And going through with that, knowing by the beginning of the game that Peter was Spider-Man, because he says, you knew, oh my God, you knew, you did all these things. You hurt people, you let these inmates free, you let this virus roam wild, and by the end of the game, he killed Aunt May due to the devil's breath, knowing that his closest friend, his dearest companion, Peter, was this hero trying to do good and also helping him along the way. And seeing that, like, and of course, you rest easy knowing your secret's safe with me. So he's so far gone that he's willing to even throw away the friendship that he built with his closest friend to get what he wants, which is a revenge against Norman. And seeing that lesson, like, Peter could have taken the life of his uncle's killer easily with no remorse. Like,
That's
why
true.
shouldn't you? He took your father, pretty much. What are you gonna do about it? Get rid of him. He's a scumbag. No, I'm better than that. I'm above that. I am me. I'm Peter, and I'm also, in a way, I'm still my Uncle Ben. I am who he taught me to be, and I will continue to converse myself with others in a way that he would want me to do. And even if that means going up against someone that you hold dear like Otto, or someone even in real life that if you have a close friend you may have to sever ties with, that still shows that you as a person can overcome that sadness and that pain with something positive and reassuring in the end. And that's insane. Like, that message for this game alone, and even some of the comics and movies to show these types of stories, just are so, incredibly impactful that I don't think can be experienced in any other way.
That's amazing, man. Wow.
That just gotta give it to you, man.
Oh, bro, please.
I've
like only played the game like 100 times, so I gotta have some.
I was like opinion. A kid just listening. That was great.
Well, thank you.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, and it's just like with Peter Parker. At the end of the day, I mean, he is a. I mean, truly, he is what epitomizes a true hero, in my opinion. And the fact also too that he tried to, he tried to. Yeah, I mean, especially in the game, it seemed like he tried to help out Doc Ock. That was his, his willingness to help others. That's what makes him Spider-Man, and and it's amazing. And like when I read the Superior Spider-Man comic too, I mean, he you could tell that Peter was an influence on Doc Ock Spidey, even though it was sort of in a sinister sort of way. I mean, there was some influence there. And when I read Superior Spider-Man, I couldn't help but feel a little sorry for Doc Ock because you see his childhood, and it was just like bad, and I was just like, wow, and then especially when in the end of the day, it's like with Doc Ock, even with the most ruthless villains, I feel like there's always some kind of good in them. In a sense, like with Doc Ock, there was of course there was some good in the guy, and even I felt like in Superior Spider-Man, what triggered him to actually get Peter back, I think, was like when his childhood friend got mortally wounded, and he was just like, "Oh, what have I done?" And he's like, all this time I thought I was Superior Spider-Man, but then New York is going to hell. I mean, the Goblin King is just wreaking havoc. I gotta get the OG back, and yeah, and then especially even with a comic, or with the movie, or excuse me, the game, it seemed like he still had a little ounce of good there, and just by telling Spider-Man, I guess trying to keep his secret identity, I guess is a way of saying I'm sorry, I effed up.
Right. And we see that kind of progress further when in the DLC in the game and the sequel with Miles, mini sequel, spin-off standalone game. If you go back to Octavius Industries, that building, it's closed off. So
Yeah.
he's lost his whole business. He's still in the raft. The Sinister Six are also still there. Rhino got out in the game with Miles, but he got back after the end of it.
Yeah.
But it shows how this is a lived-in world with characters that have a deep-rooted history with Spider-Man. And even knowing that, though, with those other Sinister Six members, this game was the birth of Doc Ock. This was his origin, pretty much, for that character in this universe. Even after 8 years of Peter's Spider-Man career, seeing again, like I mentioned earlier, this is their own take on the characters that's now cemented in the history of that icon. And it's so cool to see that how it really not only differentiates it from the standard norm, from the comics and the movies and the shows, but also gives some new life that really maybe makes a character better. Like, oh my God, even, I guess MODOK in the Avengers game, which as kind of a subpar villain as he was still interesting enough to say, you know what, I never really resonated with MODOK before, but I do like this version. Not as much as I would like to, but it's still different enough that I really enjoy it for what it is. And I appreciate them for doing new things. And I hope that trend continues with the games, the movies, the shows, and seeing how people crave new stuff. They crave ingenuity and, just revolutionizing and reinventing something that's been established before to something new and fresh. And I think that that's the direction that they're going with these games. I hope. And that's the direction that they're clearly going with these movies and shows, with the superhero icons. Not so much with the big lizard and big monkey fighting, but that's a discussion for another day.
No, I just think that's an excellent point and stuff. And when you play Miles Morales, like at the beginning of it, Miles seems like confident, like he's training with Peter, and like his dialogue underneath his character tag says Miles, but the minute Peter leaves and stuff, gives him the great responsibility suit, and you hear on my own, you hear Kid Cudi in the background. It literally transitions to Spider-Man for the rest of the dialogue, and when Peter gives him that costume, it's like, okay, you're still learning, but I know what you went through. Your father died in front of you. And him talking to Peter and him saving Harlem on his own, it was very cathartic, and it helped Miles move forward. It helped him grow as a character and have that extension of life that Peter went through for the 8 years, knowing that he kept pushing everyone away. But in the instance when he let Miles in, Peter was like, this is what I should have been the entire time.
Right. And I think that's just, a beautiful message to just simply keep going. No matter how harsh things may get for you, no matter how stressful life may become, you still have others that rely on you and depend on you for who you are and care about you for just being and just continuing to see you, progress and thrive in your own life and make others' lives better through that, and just seeing how even what Miles has learned from Peter, and even in a sense what Peter's learned from Miles, they can trust each other. They're there for one another. and they can share this pain together. You know, if they go through these trials and tribulations that they'll.
Evan? Yeah, you lagged for a second.
Oh, whoops, sorry.
Yeah.
We'll edit that out. You can edit that out. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But I just want to ask and stuff like anything else you want to ask? Like we don't want to keep you too long. That's why.
No, I'm totally fine. I'm down to clown. Let's see.
Down to clown. That's a good one.
Yeah, bro. See, use it. Go for it. I don't know. I mean, I guess for a question for you guys.
Okay.
What would you both like to see Marvel do in the future with these properties? I mean, for these shows or the movies, because you guys know I'm a gamer, so I prefer the games over the movies and the shows. So even though I know about what's happening in WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, I haven't seen the episodes for myself, and I'm not really too invested in what happens because I care more about the other side of Marvel with the games and the animation as well, and maybe some of the films. But right now, I'm not really too engaged, even with No Way Home. You know, as the big of a Spider-Man buff I am, you guys know me. The second they announce the sequel for the game, I will throw No Way Home in the garbage. You know,
I agree.
But I'm just saying for you guys, no diss on No Way Home because we haven't seen a trailer yet. But for both of you, Brendan and Brian, what would you like to see be done for either Marvel or DC with these properties? Like your dream project, like a movie or a game or a show or anything that you could think of. Me, I want, for a fact, no matter what, Bill Roseman, if you're listening, I beg you, Doctor Strange game made by Remedy Studios. That is a dream project that needs to happen, solid. And it will make you money, I guarantee it. But that's kind of like my dream project for these properties.
I would love a Daredevil game by Rocksteady. After seeing their writing and their level of quality with the Arkham games and how dark a character Batman truly is and the free flow combat, I would love a Daredevil game from Rocksteady. After watching the 3 seasons on Netflix, now Charlie Cox is perfection as the character, and I just love Daredevil. I did. I wrote an entire editorial about it for a journalism class. My professor looked at me. Wow, I didn't know comic books are that deep. I was like, yes, yeah, they are. Like DC, I love Superman. Like, you know, I want to see Cavill again on screen. I do, but you know, just everything with DC right now is just so in flux. I'll give Robert Pattinson a chance. Like I do, I like the motif to it. The cinematography looks great. Matt Reeves is a fantastic director. I'll give it a chance, you know. But Marvel, like I like where they're going, but I just, you know, the thing about Phase 3 is it felt very like this going on top of each other. And in a way, I remember people are like, oh, fatigue is going to set in. But when you watch Phase 4, they're letting the directors really bring out the childhood comic book kid and make what they want. And I feel just let the director have the final say. Let Kevin Feige still produce. Let a Bill Roseman still produce. You know, let him have his creative influence on it. And you'll see, because these are comic book fans. These are same kids like us who aspire to be them. And they're bringing their memories and what they want for these characters to life. And it's going to show one day. You know what? We're probably going to do it one day. And we'll be sitting there like on a podcast like this with people interviewing us.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to think, but I just want DC and Marvel to respect the characters they have and show them the love and admiration like an Insomniac Spider-Man, like a Rocksteady Batman, like an MCU. DCEU to an extent. The Snyder Cut was really well established. Just give the characters the same love and treatment that I harbor in my heart for them.
Wow. Now for me, like I would, you know, there's just so much that I would like Marvel to do. You know, especially with like the fact that they have, I believe they have X-Men right now. They own X-Men. They got it from Sony. Yeah. So I would love to see
Fantastic Four
and the Fantastic Four.
My favorite director of all time, which I have no gripes with and don't like at all. I mean, love John Watts. Yay! Can't wait for that movie. Oh boy!
Wait, he's directing Fantastic Four?
Yes, sir.
John Watts is 2023.
Do you think their term's going to be the term with Fantastic Four? Because the last couple of Fantastic Fours haven't been good.
Fan Four Stick, I pretend doesn't exist. I do like the first one, with Chris Evans, Human Torch, and I always forget the actor's name who plays Mr. Fantastic. I think he did a
Ryan
great
Grufford.
job. He is excellent in the role. I think he was great. And oh my God,
Jessica
Michael
Alba as Susan
Chiklis as the
Storm.
Thing. Yes, Michael Chiklis is the man, bro. Like he
I
wanted to
like
be
Michael
in that suit.
Chiklis.
He's so good. I love that. So whatever happens with John Watts' Fantastic Four, I will at least give him the benefit of the doubt, saying there's no way he can make it worse than Fan Four Stick. So yeah, that'll be
But
fine.
but you know what I really want to see though? I really want to see a movie with Gambit, the Raging Cajun.
Yes.
I
That'd be
mean,
cool.
that'd be a sweet movie. Along and just having Rogue along with him too. I mean, they have to put Gambit because the Gambit from like the last from Wolverine X-Men Origins, to me that was not Gambit. That was just a pretty boy. I mean,
With a staff and cards.
with
Or
his staff and
something.
cards. Yeah,
That was
Gambit is
watered
like
down.
yeah.
Yeah.
Gambit was like rugged. Gambit is like, he's a hustler. He's a
Mhm.
ladies' man. He's cool. Like this
He's
Gambit.
kind of like the James Bond of Marvel.
He's like the James Bond of
Yes.
Marvel. Yeah.
Kind of like, yeah, that'd be cool. Like a solo Gambit movie in that manner. Like, I'm down for it.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to see a Gambit movie. And what else? Another, definitely with the X-Men. I'm really looking forward to what they do with the X-Men, and I was really hoping to have them introduce the X-Men in WandaVision. I was really just hoping, but that didn't happen. So I was like, damn it, but
But we got that sick boner joke. Everyone's favorite. I mean,
yeah.
amazing.
And also too, maybe they could do. I mean, are they? I thought I heard they're gonna do a Marvel Zombies movie.
Hmm.
Thought I heard
Could
about
be a
that.
possibility.
That would
I
be
know
pretty cool though.
that one of the episodes of What If has Zombie Cap. and
Yeah, I
that's all
saw
know about
that.
that, which is weird, but okay.
Hmm.
Interesting enough, I guess. But yeah, Gambit movie, Daredevil game, and Doctor Strange game all sound hype for me. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, totally, man.
All right, boys. Is that the finale, or should we end off with a high note of some kind?
What are you feeling for a high note? Because I feel like that could have been the finale, but now you mentioned
Yep.
a high note. Let's
Let's
finish
do
it
a
on a high
note,
note.
man.
I don't know. Like, I would just say, like, in general, I think what's cool about this whole interaction we've had for what, 2 hours now? It's
Yeah.
just that we've all been
Dang.
connected through one single character, Spider-Man, and of course,
Spider-Man
our
brought
love
us
for
together.
Marvel and DC and other comics as well. But exactly, are just the comics medium. But without this one character, this one individual, one person, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be able to talk to someone as amazing as Brennan, someone as passionate as Brian, and just how kind they are, and just being able to conversate about things
Thank
we
you.
mutually love
Thank you.
together, all because of our shared love for this character is so incredibly special. And I hope that continues to thrive more down the line with other communities and other properties and other characters and all these amazing titles and games and movies and shows that we all resonate with deeply. And just seeing how this community continues to inspire me in immense lengths that I could not even fathom before is just a cherry on top of the already amazing journey that I've been on and lucky enough to continue being on, thanks to incredible people like Brennan and Brian. So again, guys, thank you so much for having me, and I could not be more honored to be here with you guys today.
It was a great
Thank you,
honor having
Evan.
you, man.
That was an absolute blast, man. Thank you so much for having us on.
Well, thank you for having me on. My God, it's your show.
You're the
just happy to
Spider-Man
be
of the
here.
hour, dude. The Spider-Man
Bro.
of the hour.
Not worthy. Thank you. I'll wear my web shooters with praise then.
Do you have the mask?
Bro, what do I have? I have my web shooters. I have the snow globe of the advanced suit. I have a plushie, which here, let me grab really quick. I have hats and beanies. I don't have a mask anywhere, sadly, but
Dude,
Oh,
that's
wow.
dope.
it's the best I can do.
That's dope.
Oh man. Perfect.
I think that's pretty good to end the show, boys.
Yeah, totally. Well, so that's gonna
Aces.
End... So that's going to end it off in this segment of the Earth 16 Comics Wire podcast. Evan, where can we follow you?
So, boys, you can follow me at Evan Flicara at Twitter, which is mainly the only social media platform I use, other than YouTube, where my YouTube channel is Evan Flicara. And if you want to stay up to date with everything Marvel games related, or possibly Marvel movies related, or just superhero games oriented topics, follow me and you will have your wish fulfilled. And I will do my very best to keep delivering as much content as I possibly can for you guys.
All right, and you can follow me on Twitter at BrianFord16, as well as Instagram at BrianFord16. And you can also follow the podcast, the Earth 16 Comics Wire at Earth 16 Podcast on Twitter, and Earth 16 Comics on Instagram. And also, you can definitely follow us on Twitter. Twitter, what am I talking about? You can follow us on Twitch, which you're watching on right now. And you also have a YouTube page, which is actually going to be, this video is going to be posted up really soon. And of course, on Spotify, wherever all podcasts are listened to.
You can also follow me on Twitter. My account is Bren versus Reviews. And if you guys like any content, I write a lot of poetry. I write a lot of editorials, articles, op-ed pieces. And like always, I write for Daily Planet DC. And you guys have a good night.
Yep. Follow
Peace
us
out,
on
true
Daily
believers.
Planet.
Excelsior!
Peace out. And remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
Take care, y'all.